walking through the desert, potentially spending 40 years there, dying. Well, why should I do it, right? And that's where the value proposition kicks in. That's the value that you are proposing. You need to know, on the very basic level, what value somebody is receiving from being part of this quest, from being a member of this movement, on the social side or on the business side, from paying for the service. What are they getting? And how does that add up to the choices that they are going to have to leave aside in order to make the choice to be part of what it is that you're doing? So in other words, if we do not have a value proposition to you, if you do not feel that today was valuable, I can assure myself at least that you guys have other things to do with your Sunday. You have other places to be, other things to do, other people to see, other things to learn. You're making a choice by being here. If I can't provide you value such that you feel that this is something that is beneficial to you, on a fundamental level, forget what present tense needs, to you, then you won't come back. And recognizing that and trying to put it in those terms is crucial to be able to get people to be part of something, be it give you dollars or hours or whatever it might be. Right? So on that basic level, what we're going to do now for the next about 5 minutes, a little bit more, is we're going to workshop this. We're doing this, I'm going to take a balcony view for a second as I'm stepping out of the workshop and talking a little bit from above it. We're doing this not because you as individuals need to do it, although many of you might benefit from this exercise, but so you understand what people that you're teaching are going to be going through as you're doing this. And after I'm done, I'm also going to tell you about physical things that I'm doing and different kind of cues and whatnot, but I wanted to do it after and not during. Okay? So back into it. So let's break up into groups of 3. Just pick 2 people next to you. Each person pick 3. And identify, first take one person, identify an idea that you want to workshop today. Just pick one that you're going to take throughout the course of the day. It can be anything. It can be from your favorite breakfast cereal to a project that you've been working on to the organization you're working with, etc. Explain what the Egypt is. What's the market context? But talk about it in terms of the Egypt. That is, what is the challenge that exists? What are you coming into? What a world is imperfect that you're trying to fix? Talk about what's going to happen, what the world's going to look like once you've fixed it, and then why people should be part of this, what they're going to gain out of it. Take about 5 minutes per person, a little bit less, 3 minutes if possible, and then we're going to come back together because we're not actually doing this as a real exercise. Go ahead.
Akil, are you in a group?
No, not yet.
Okay, so why don't you...
Yeah,
you know what, in the interest of time, why don't we group up and it'll be a smaller group.
Are we going to...
I'm very bad with it. So in an hour, I say, what's your name again?
So basically, what it was is to create 5 people.
Okay.
Those opportunities are not necessarily locations, and I think that
the value proposition. Now, the value proposition for people who are innovators, I think that it would be getting that support and having a community, and it's very clear. Now, for my other half, which are the people I would say
so if you're in
I don't know if they
What's the thing that's going to happen? When we see action, like an example might be your contribution empowers leaders to make a difference in communities.
That they have is more vibrant, exciting.
Why would I don't know that would be hard to stay in the community or like I worked really hard on the things that was on my list.
Yeah, I mean, I just made that up because I don't really know anything about the car. Some articulate. I'm a donor. Why am I getting you money? What are you going to do? What's my $1,000 going to change?
It's like an artist, right?
Or that maybe someone would hear about an organization that would know about
Switch to the last one if you haven't yet.
Perfect size.
Keep going.
Their potential for working in vibrant Jewish communities in Germany would be tremendous.
So for me, they're not colleges, no colleges, but
So all my parents
we don't need to. There's a lot of variety of Jewish, there's a lot of and I've noticed that she does a pharmacology and the site section and also the person administering the drugs. And there is
Have not worked on it. Down until it's denser and has more, you know.
So let's bring it all together. So you guys have had a little bit, and I'm balconying on this. Usually what I do is I'd say, all right, one person, tell us. So what's your Egypt? And then tell us what's the promised land. What's the bottom line that someone's going to be getting out of this? Bottom line, by the way, just to understand where the term comes from. On a budget, on the bottom line, that's what tells you whether it's worth anything or not, and that's the language that we're using. But it's also, it's generally something good to know. Bottom line is what's the actual impact.
In the business, it's your revenues minus your costs. It's the result.
And in social enterprise, it's there's a double bottom line. It's your social impact with your economic impact on your organization and on the world. Hopefully, it's positive on both sides. So, and then we go. But what I want to do instead, because you guys are different, is to talk for a second about the exercise itself. So, who here had trouble with understanding the context itself? And you can say that you had trouble with it. It's fine if you did.
By the context, you mean like the...
Yeah, the different elements. Anyone here have an easy time of saying what their Egypt was, understanding how Egypt is applied to the business context? Someone want to share? You're shaking your head. Yeah, go.
So it's what I'm doing for my master's project, but for me the Egypt is if you've been a Jewish professional in a variety of organizations and a variety of positions, with the economy as it is, a lot of programming professionals and admin professionals have to be marketing professionals and actually engage in the development. And not everyone has the skill set to do that. So Egypt, it's not horrible. I mean, you get to have these amazing jobs working with your community, but it's imperfect because you have to add this component that you might not be trained to do.
That's a wonderful example of particularly an opportunity in the market that exists due to an imperfection that has occurred. Absolutely. Anyone else? You had a challenge with boundaries? Yeah. Go ahead. So where was the challenge?
So for the purpose of my own exploration, I chose a topic that's like really not well formed and I haven't spent a lot of time on. And because of my high level of passion about it, but little previous exploration, I had a difficult time articulating.
Okay. Do you want to share with us that for a second?
Yeah, I recently got involved with a German Jewish organization working with youth, and became interested in getting them the resources that they need to become more educated, engaged members of their communities in Germany.
And what's the challenge that they're facing?
But there are very few resources all around available to them in terms of mentoring, in terms of like opportunity in community, even in terms of like knowledge and like books translated into German. Just, like,
and what would the world look like if this organization succeeded in its quest? What's the promised land they're trying to bring people into?
They could be really engaged and enable young leaders that would have an impact on their local communities and would bring value to the Jewish community globally.
Okay, and if you are going to be talking to somebody to tell them why they should be part of this, why they should march with you, what the value they will receive by supporting this is, what would you say?
That they would be at the forefront of a new area of Jewish leadership that's like untapped as I see it now with a tremendous amount of potential.
So that's a very basic way to put it. On a very basic way, right? You can go deeper into that. You can say that this is a market of great need with great potential. These individuals can impact communities around the world. By investing a little bit now, you can get huge return for the larger Jewish global community. Meaning there are many different ways to put it, but how you just said it is exactly it, right? The market context is that there's a lack of resources available for German Jewish youth to explore their identity and to train themselves to be active communally. If they succeed, there will be a vibrant German Jewish population, which, of course, for historical reasons, is is some kind of a triumph against the challenges that we faced. And by joining now, by being part of that march, you can make that difference, right? For a little bit, you can make a huge amount of difference, right? So there you go. I mean, now, so on a very basic level, that's a way to be able to work with it, right? Because once you start getting there, well, then you have to ask yourself, once you figure out the reason for marching, of course, you were talking to a very specific demographic. You were talking to donors, right? Now, that's identifying the target market that you're looking for, right? Those are the people that you want to march with you. You might decide that you want to identify someone completely different. You might decide that what you want to do is you want to pair up with Lizette and say, well, there are all these Jewish communal professionals out there that don't have a lot of money for vacations because we're not making a lot of cash. So how about we fly you out to Germany and you teach seminars out there and you get to explore a whole new culture and you get to empower people and the cost of it. You know what I'm saying? So there are different ways to put it, different people that are going to march. It's going to be a different approach to the Promised Land, but it's a different model, right? And we're going to get to that because that's part of the inspiration process. That's part of the visioning process. It's starting off with an idea, recognizing that's just one approach to the larger issue of Egypt and bringing people to the Promised Land, and then exploring different ways that one could approach or get people from Egypt to the Promised Land. Right? And now let's talk about a way to do it. This is the next step. I don't want to keep this open. So the next tool that we're going to teach is called History of the Future. Has anyone used History of the Future before? It's a very fun tool. Now, teaching History of the Future can be a workshop in and of itself. We want to provide you a sample of it in the visioning process because it's a very helpful way to think about your idea. On the basic level, what it is to tell the story of the Promised Land 5 years into the future. Once you've reached the Promised Land, how does it look? Who's benefiting from it? What's the ecosystem that has arisen there? How are people interacting with one another? And center it around the people that you've identified as the core target market and the value that they want to receive from it. Why? Because when you're selling to someone, either on the for-profit side or the nonprofit side, they need to know what they're going to be benefiting from, and not just from that moment that they utilize the service. How does it affect their life? How do they change? The marketing campaigns for Coca-Cola or for Ford or for whatever, they never center only on the experience of the product. It's there how it affects the larger array of a person's life. Same thing with nonprofit organizations. And then you tell the history. How'd you get there? In 2016, and now we'll go into it, but I'll give you an example before we break up into groups. In 2016, present tense is in 32 communities around the world. In each one of those communities, there are steering committees of 24 young professionals who are leading the charge to identify challenges in their community, identifying mentors who are prominent business and nonprofit professionals in their community, and then finding their peers who have ideas to address those challenges and helping them start the startups. Once a year, this huge mass of activists who are transforming the world come together in order to share best practices, learn from one another, and partner up in order to create globe-spanning opportunities for people to get involved and to transform the world. How did we get there? In 2010, we started a SocialStart Training course. And the SocialStart Training course got 10 new individuals so very engaged in the idea of how to train entrepreneurs that all of a sudden, not only did we have trainers, we had whole new curricula that were available. And out of the SocialStart Training course, 3 of the members said, you know what, maybe what we should do is we should create an online component for the SocialStart Training course, which will let people be part of the course even if they're not physically present. And then people in 2011 who were taking the course online said, you know what, why don't we do this locally? And they applied to Present Tense to send someone to their coordinator training course. And all of a sudden, Present Tense was able to serve many more communities without having to send people out there physically. And so by 2013, what we had was communities around the world coming to a series of seminars in different times during the year, all learning together, and then going out there and implementing in the field. So that by 2015, all Present Tense had to do was